What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality podcast. I'm your host. I am Caitlin Kenna Smith. And on today's episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about turning pain into hope. And I know how much people love stories, so we're going to incorporate a story of mine into this as well. Because there's something about storytelling that really helps to resonate with people and really deliver a message and make it more powerful. But also it kind of shows you how it's possible, and it allows you to see the hope in any situation. Now, this particular episode or this topic was inspired because I listened to a podcast by one of my favorite podcasts, Ed Mylett. The Ed Mylett Show. If you don't listen to it, go listen to it. Ed Mylett is an incredible human being, and he's doing so many incredible things for the world. And I always believe that Ed always knows what I need to hear. It's kind of what I always think when I listen to his podcast with his solo episodes, because he does solo episodes and then he does episodes where he interviews somebody else. And every single day, I get up, I get outside, I go on a walk, get some movement in, and I throw a podcast in my ears. And generally, it's always Mind Pump. Mind Pump is my favorite podcast of all time. I learned so much from Mind Pump, and I just really enjoy it. And starting my day off with a podcast is something that I truly enjoy, and it helps really set the tone for the day and get me in the right mindset. However, whenever the Mind Pump episode ends, it just automatically plays something else from, I guess, podcast that I listen to, because it's not always Ed Mylett, but whenever it is Ed Mylett, I take it as a sign that I probably need to hear this, so I'm going to listen to it. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. So I was listening to this episode, and it was all about suicide and depression and anxiety and mental health, and him talking about his own struggles with mental health, which is incredible when you think about it, because this is a man who literally has his own island, right? And he's impacted so many lives, and he's always such a positive light to people. And he gets on stage and talks in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and has, I know, changed so many people's lives, because I know he's changed mine. And he's talking about how he's struggled with mental health and how he's struggled with depression and having dark thoughts. And he really puts forward a lot of different perspectives for you to look at. Now, the goal that I have with this podcast is that I don't just want it to change somebody's life, I want it to save somebody's life. If I can save one person's life from the content that I put out, whether it be on social media or through this podcast, or just through coaching my clients and helping people, or even just having a conversation with somebody outside of my house. You never know what somebody's going through, so it's so important to be kind. So as I was listening to this episode the other day, it inspired me to do my own episode from my own perspective with my own story, and also do a little bit of research on the topic of mental health, depression, suicide, because unfortunately it's something that really is taking over our nation, and not just our nation, but the world. But ever since the pandemic, it's really been much, much, much more prevalent in our society. And you know, I'm all about research, I'm all about statistics. So to give you a couple different statistics about suicide, the CDC data and statistics around fatal injury, a report from 2022, which was published on May 11th, 2024, said that suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States, with 49,476 people taking their lives from suicide in the year 2002. However, the craziest thing about that is a huge number of people. Almost 50,000 people killed themselves, took their own life because they were hurting so bad. The craziest part, though, is that 1.6 million people attempted suicide in the year 2022. That's even more insane, because that means that 1.6 million people were hurting so bad to the point that they tried to take their own life. something that is so precious that we only get one shot at. Now, of adults that were surveyed, 94% of them believed that suicide could be prevented. And I'm definitely somebody who believes suicide can be prevented. So if 94% of people believe that suicide can be prevented, then what can we do to help somebody who's struggling? And I think the craziest part about suicide is, generally speaking, those who are hurting the most are the best at hiding it. I know for myself, when I was in the darkest time of my life, where I was dealing with really, really dark thoughts, and I'll tell the story, but when I was really struggling with depression and where I even attempted to take my own life in 2020, I don't think anybody had a clue. Like, even my roommate. Like, I don't think my roommate knew. I don't think the people that I worked with knew. I don't even think my own mother would have guessed. And I think that so many people can relate to that. And the unfortunate truth is that I'm sure every single person who's listening to this podcast right now knows somebody in their life, whether it be a friend of a friend, a family member, a distant cousin, whatever, somebody that had taken their life. My aunt took her life. I almost took my life. And I've told this story on the podcast a few times, but I want to tell it here just to kind of give you guys perspective on why I do what I do. Because I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and that I was given a second chance for a reason, for a purpose, to help people. Because you're most qualified to help the person that you used to be. And when you go through really challenging times and you come out on the other side, I believe that you can be a vessel for hope. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I post the content that I post. Because I want to be a vessel for hope for somebody who's struggling, who doesn't believe that they can get through it, but I know that they can. Because if I was able to do it, anybody can. Because back in 2020, I was beyond rock bottom. Prior to my attempted suicide, it wasn't like the first time that I dealt with those dark thoughts. It was just the first time that I really truly took action on it. And I talk about how action cures everything, but in this case, action would be doing other things, not this. So prior to that, I had just recently started to recover fully from my eating disorder that took 6 years of my life from me. I was so depressed. I was so anxious. I was just in a very dark place. I was working 13 to 14 hours a day at the gym, as well as getting my own workouts in. The only time I was really home was when I came home at 10 p.m. and went to bed. On the weekends, I was constantly stressed about work and I didn't have any friends. I had my roommate, but she was always working and I didn't really have anybody else. The person that I was dating at the time had just moved over to Japan, and then I find out that he cheated on me with his current wife, so congratulations to them. And you know what? It worked out because I fell in love with somebody else. But at the time when all of that started to happen, I thought that I was losing everything. And I had recently got a promotion from sales manager to general manager, and that was the promotion that I was chasing for so long. Like, I gave my entire life to get that promotion. I can't even begin to explain to you how much I gave to that company in order to get that promotion. And once I got it, I realized that it didn't make me happy. I thought that, like, hey, I'll be happy once I get this promotion. Everything will fall into place once I get this promotion, but it didn't. And when it didn't happen, it wasn't what I wanted, I fell into a really dark place. And one night on the way home from work, I was in such a dark place that I tried to drive my car off the highway into a pole. I missed the pole. Or into a sign, whatever. I missed it. And once I realized kind of what had happened and I got back on the road, I was like, I'm glad that it didn't happen because I had like immediate regret. Now, prior to that, like I said, I had recovered from an eating disorder where I was slowly killing myself. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was starving myself because I wanted to feel something. And prior to that, when I was in an abusive household with my father being addicted to drugs, I was burning myself with an eraser because I was too afraid to cut myself. So I was literally just like taking an eraser to my wrist, and I still have scars from it. That shit hurts. So I was doing self-harm, so it's not like something completely new to me to have like these dark thoughts, but again, it was something that I never took action on until then. And immediately when I wasn't successful, I was filled with this fear, but also this gratitude to say, okay, well, there has to be something bigger for me. There has to be a purpose and a reason to why I'm here. So I'm going to figure that out. And that's really when I changed my life. A month later, not even, the government shutdown happened. I was furloughed from my job that I gave everything to, and I used that as my opportunity to say, you know what? There are going to be a lot of people during this pandemic, during this government shutdown, who just take advantage of all the things that are being given to them. They sit on their ass, they watch Netflix all day, they don't get anything done. But I was going to be the other person. I was going to be the person who got their shit together and changed their life. And that's exactly what I did. I started 75 Hard, and I used 75 Hard as my final chance. If this won't fix me, if this won't get me in the right mindset to create the life that I know that I can live and find my purpose and passion, then nothing will. And it worked. And if you knew me back in 2020, you would not even recognize me today because of the confidence that I have, the strength that I have, the power that I have, and the hope that I have and that I give off. Now, when I was listening to this podcast episode yesterday that Ed Milet put out, he told a story of Kevin Hines. Now, Kevin Hines wrote a book about his story about how he survived his suicide attempt. Now, his was a little bit crazier than mine. He jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he survived. And obviously, surviving something like that, it wakes you up. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when Ed Milet interviewed him on a prior episode, Ed asked him, what was your first thought as soon as you jumped? And Kevin said, well, my first thought was, oh my God, what have I done? Immediate regret. And I bet that most people who attempt it have that immediate regret. I know that I did. The unfortunate thing is that some people aren't lucky enough to get a second chance. And they have that immediate regret, but it's too late. Now, there are two groups of people who are listening to this podcast right now. We have the group who right now is hurting. You're struggling. You're going through a really difficult time in your life. You're depressed. You're lost. You don't know what's wrong. You're in a funk. You're just not feeling okay. And then we have a second group of people, and those are the people who are okay, who are not hurting right now. But I bet that second group of people have probably hurt in the past. So I'm going to talk to you guys first. Check in on your people. Like I said, those who are probably hurting the most put on the best poker face. So even if you think that, I don't need to call that person, I don't need to text that person, I don't need to reach out. If you have a feeling to reach out to somebody, always reach out to them and check in on them. Just ask them how they're doing. You're not always going to have the opportunity to reach out to the people that you love, so take advantage of it while you have it. And like I said earlier, you are most qualified to help the person that you used to be. So if you've been through a challenging time and you've gotten through it, use that experience as an opportunity to be a vessel for hope and help people, serve people. And more than anything, be kind. Be kind to everybody, because you don't know what somebody's going through. Before you like write shitty comments on somebody's Facebook post or on their Instagram post, why don't you think before you speak? Because again, you never know what you're saying to somebody, and you never know what they're going through internally. And again, going back to the vessel of hope, that's exactly why I do what I do, why I have this podcast, why I coach people, why I am so passionate about what I do, and why I'm going to grow this to so much bigger. Because I want to help people. I want to change the world. And if you are somebody who is struggling, if you are in the group that's hurting, you're going through a challenging time in your life, you're struggling with depression, anxiety, you're just off, you don't know what's wrong, you feel lost, you're trying not to feel. I want to remind you that you're loved, you're amazing, and you will get through whatever you're going through because you're here for a reason and there's a purpose to your life. I also want to remind you that it's not a weakness if you are struggling. It's part of being a human being. And like I said, you will get through it. If you're having really dark thoughts right now, remember my story. Immediate regret. Remember Kevin Hines jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. His first thought, oh my God, what have I done? Immediate regret. But then also think about the damage that it will do to the people around you. You may not think that it's going to damage somebody because you think, I'm not worthy. Nobody cares about me. But I promise you, my aunt committed suicide. I think it was over 10 years ago at this point. I wish that I knew. But it was a very long time ago. And I just remember being in the funeral, and my uncle got up to give a eulogy, and he couldn't even hold in his emotions because he was so devastated. And my cousin, her daughter, it was just recent that I believe it was the 10-year anniversary, and she posted on her social media, like, I miss you every day. And I know her sister. I know her sister misses her too. Just think about the damage that you're going to do to the people around you. You might not think that you're going to do damage, but I promise you that you will. The truth of all of this is that we're only here on Earth for a short period of time. Literally like the flash in a pan, right? Like a flicker, a snap of fingers, and we're gone. And life is a blessing and it's a gift. And even though there are going to be hard times, because this is just how life is, there are going to be hard, challenging times that you're going to have to endure. No matter what, better times are always coming. So take care of yourself. Seek help if you need help. Ask somebody for help, whether it be a friend or a family member or a coach or a mentor, or if you feel like you need therapy. Get help. Take care of yourself. There's been a lot of research coming out recently saying that movement and exercise is more helpful and beneficial than therapy and medication for treating depression and anxiety. Movement, exercise, training, getting uncomfortable, pushing yourself and seeing what your body's capable of. It's an incredible medication. And it's the cheapest form. Nutrition is our best medicine. My husband said something a few weeks ago that really stuck with me. And he said that God gave us food before he gave us medicine for a reason. And that's so true. A lot of people deal with depression and anxiety and mood disorders because of all the crap that they're eating. If you actually feed your body whole nutrient-dense foods that it thrives with, you're going to have better brain health. And when you have better brain health, your neurochemicals are going to be in a better place, your hormones are going to be in a better place, and you're not going to struggle with the anxiety and depression. I promise you, it makes a huge difference. What you put into your body and what you put into your brain is what you get out. So if you're constantly taking in crap through your nutrition, you're going to get crap in your brain. And if you're constantly taking in crap from news, social media, things like that, and you're not taking in good information and things that can help you improve and grow, you're going to struggle. So control what you put in your mouth and control what you put in your brain. Sunlight is another incredible thing. Get outside. So many of us spend so much time just sitting under fluorescent lights in an office, sitting at a desk, and it's no wonder we're depressed. Imagine what your dog would do if you just left him inside all day. He'd be really depressed. You're the same. Take care of yourself and do things that bring joy to your life, even the little things. Lighting a candle and just having a bath, doing a puzzle, spending time with the people that you love, sitting around a fire, having a nice cup of coffee on the porch while the sun rises. Whatever makes you feel alive and brings a little bit of joy into your life, do something like that every single day. A lot of people complain about how they're burnt out, and I believe that burnout isn't having too much on your plate. It's not doing enough of the things that make you feel alive. So do more things that bring joy into your life and make you feel alive. And whether you're hurting or you're not hurting right now when it comes to your mental health, check in on your people and always remind people that you love them and care about them, because you never know what somebody's going through, and you can always be an advocate and a vessel for hope. So go out and do one thing that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.